Hello, I'm your Kingdom Spiritual Transformational and Spiritual Warfare Life Coach and Mentor, Latricia Booker. And I'm stopping by to tell you that they refuse to change, yet they are triggered by your growth. They refuse to change, yet they are triggered by your growth. And I'm going to leave this message with Luke verses 37, chapter 5, verses 37 through 39. And it says, "And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for new wine will burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine must be stored in new wineskins. But no one drinks the old wine, seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine, they say." And that is the word of the Lord. And so, Kingdom people, listen, when God gave me this message, He was talking to me about how people refuse to change. But they triggered by your growth. Then He gave me this scripture as He was speaking to me about these ways that they don't want to change. But at the same time, they triggered by your growth. And the part that tripped me out was the 39th verse that says, "But no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine," they say. Now we are familiar with Luke 5 and 37. "And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the new wine will burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins." Many of us are familiar with that. But when you read on to 39, verse 39, that's how I was. It really tripped me out. "But no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine." They don't want the new wine. They don't want the new. They don't want the change. They don't want to change. The old is just fine, they say. It's just fine. So, Kingdom people, it's not so much that they don't want the new wine. They just don't want to stop drinking that old wine. That sounded crazy when I said it. Oh. And so here's what's going on, Kingdom people. My God. So we have people that you've known who are familiar with you. Then you have these people, they don't know you. That's been a common thing lately. The people that know you or knew you. And the people who really don't know you, they know of you, they're around you, they're in the vicinity, they watch you. People who knew you have watched you changed. And many of these people tried to prevent this change in you. Some may even have felt like, oh, she'll always be the same. He'll always be the same. You know how they say they counted you out. They just figure, oh, you'll never amount to anything. Sometimes people do that. And many times they do that because of where you were at one time. Maybe you've had a troubled past. Maybe, you just had a lot of issues and things going on in your life. Maybe the way you were living at one point in time wasn't the best. And they just assume you're just going to always be that way. I have this thing where I'm like, I'll never put that kind of a disclaimer on anyone because I believe anyone can change. Do people always do that? No. I'm aware of that as well. However, I don't just count people out and just say, oh, there'll never be nothing. They're gonna. Because there have been many stories, and we've heard of many people who, well, I have, who have come from somewhere that wasn't that great and made something out of their lives. Even within the Christian community, if you will, where people were deep in their sin, they was out here, I'm just heard banging, gang banging or whatever. Just wasn't living the best life, drug addicts, alcoholics, all kind of stuff. And God turned that thing around for them. And I'm sure that there were people around them in their lives that had counted them out and said, yeah, it's over for them. But who are you to say that? Again, I don't do that to people, because why would you just assume they're going to just always be that way when things can change, when God can do anything? And again, we know of stories like this. So why would you do that? But people do that because that's what they want. They want people to stay where they are. They don't want them to change. They don't want them to come out, because unfortunately, many people feel good about themselves if they see other people around them that are in worse situations than them. I remember it's a person that I knew at one point in time, and this person used to always say that an ex of theirs, oh, they'll always be that way. And it was just weird to me. They were just saying it like they're never going to change. That's what they were saying. I just thought it was weird, because who are you to say? I never said it to this person, but I would just look, because who are you to say that they would never change? But what I learned about that, and what I knew even at the time, is no, you don't want them to ever change, because that way it'll justify you or make you feel good about the fact that you're no longer with them, or make you feel good about the fact that in their mind, what this person had done to them in their mind. And I'm not saying this person hadn't done some, outlandish things, but I came to learn that they had done some outlandish things to them as well. But they just couldn't see that about themselves, because, that's just kind of how they go. People in these kind of people in particular, they never see themselves. They only see what the other person did to them. They only see the way the person responded to them. And I'm not saying either was right or wrong. I'm just saying they only see, what they want to see. Anyhow, I just thought that was weird, because I just felt like, how can you put that on somebody? Like, who are you to do that? And so I learned about this person. That's what they wanted. So I also learned about this person, and just in general, that people, when they say those things, they seen it for it to stick. In other words, they were cursing the person. And so again, people may have said that about you based on some places you've been, as if you would never grow. And that's the thing, people grow. And so people say that, and they think that in many cases, or they speak of that among them others outside of you. And sometimes they'll say it to you. You ain't never gonna be nothing. You ain't never, people say that to you to get that in your mind so you can believe it. That's the whole point, to brainwash you into believing that to be your truth. And so again, word cursing you and wanting you to buy into the word curse, align with it, if you will. And so what has happened, and what had happened is you grew, you transformed, you got rid of that old wine and them old wine skins, and you drinking new wine with new wine skins. And they feeling some kind of way. They're triggered by your growth. People are triggered by your growth, and you already know why, king to people, because they didn't grow. They didn't change. They're the same. They see it. This old is just fine. That's what they say. They say they're fine just the way they are. Yet they're triggered by your growth. If you're fine just the way you are, why are you triggered by someone else's growth? Because a trigger means that there's something in you that needs to change. That's all a trigger really is. Anytime you're triggered by someone, that means there's something in you that still needs to be worked out so that you can't be triggered anymore. And sometimes you can just be triggered because it takes you to a place that wasn't so great, or it brings back certain memories you don't care to, remember or reflect upon or explore maybe any longer. And so that's another kind of a trigger. So you just kind of try to, move around that, which is understandable. However, in this case, these people are triggered, I guess you could say, because they didn't want to have to explore your growth. They didn't want to have to see it. They don't want to have to see it. They don't want to have to experience it. And the truth is, many of these people don't have to, because they can just stay out of your view. They can just stay away from you or stop watching you, trying to keep up with you. For some of these people, as I said, some of these people that you used to know, or they used to know you or thought they knew you, they watch you to keep up with you, to see what you're doing, just to get triggered. But you know, people watch you and keep up with you because they're hoping to see you fall or fail. If you are moving on some kind of event, of a new venture, that's their hope, because they want to see you as they saw you as you were before. And even if you made some little increments of changes to some extent and you're doing better, these kind of people never want to see you really grow and develop into your full potential, and definitely don't want to see you be who God created you to be and walk in who God called you to walk in. They definitely don't want to see that. And think about it. They're not doing that. They say, oh, this is just fine where I'm at. People like that just stay where they are. They don't change. They don't grow. I just heard they just go along to get along. People that do that, they'll never become who God called them to be. Because to be who God called you to be calls for transformation. And here's the thing about people like this. They're not trying to be who God called them to be. Now, they may be trying to present themselves in a certain light to make people think they're something that they're not. Or I just heard, or make people think that they are who God called them to be, when certainly they're not really being that. They're putting on, in other words. Yet, if they were really being who God called them to be, they would not be triggered by your growth. Anyone who's moving in what God truly called them to be are not triggered by others' growth. In fact, they're inspired by it. They're edified by it. They're motivated. They're encouraged. They're blessed by it. And so these people, they refuse to change, yet they're triggered by your growth. Now let's move over into these people that don't know you really, but they see you. Now, these people, they don't know where you come from. They just see where you're at. And they're still triggered by who you are. And you know how people say, because I know y'all done all heard it, they didn't see what you went through. They don't know them tears you had to cry. They don't know how you had to press through. They don't know. They don't know. And I always like to say, they don't care. It doesn't matter. If you say, well, I've been through this and that, first of all, you shouldn't be doing it anyway, because you don't have to explain what all you went through to get to where you're going, not to them. Now, there is a place where you can do that among people who you're sharing your story or your testimony with, for whatever blessed reason that God has you doing it. But these people, no, because if they trigger, you don't explain to untrigger them. They're triggered because they haven't grown. They haven't changed. What they see is your growth. They see the result of the work that you put in. And the reason why it triggers them is because it reflects to them what they haven't done with themselves. Some of these people, they do kind of think that you just like that. And maybe you are. But again, even when you're naturally a certain way, it has been developed. There are other things that just had to be developed, period. And it didn't necessarily come naturally to you. Again, all they see is the results. And they're triggered by it because it reflects their lack of growth, their lack of change. And you all know how it's being said. They are irritated by, their demons are irritated by your light. It's true. when your light show up in full measure like it does, and I'm hearing in that full glory, God's glory is on you like that, you're lit up. And people see that. It's also in just the way you move, you operate, your energy, your spirit. They pick up on all of that. And again, it reflects back to them what they're not, where they haven't grown, where they haven't matured. Excuse me. And so, all they know is what they see. And it triggers their demons, irritates their demons. Because what it says to them is, you should be changing. You should be doing something different. You should be growing. And what happens is, they say, the old is just fine. That's what they say. Oh, I'm fine just the way I am. That's what people tell themselves to keep from growing. Because growing and changing is work. And everybody don't have the wherewithal, the courage, or the strength, or mindset to do it. There's a saying, you know it. In order to do better, if you want better, you have to do better. You have to do something different if you want something different. These people are not willing, to do anything different. In order for something to change, something has to change. They don't want to make the change for something to change. These are the kind of people that try to make changes on the outside, never doing the inner work. That's why so many people try to compensate with so many material things, status, wealth, material possessions. Again, even presenting themselves in a way that's not what they are, knowing deep down inside they're full of darkness, but they'll never want others to see that, even though many times people do. Because I was just sharing with someone today how, I have this thing where I'm like, when a person do what they do, they act a fool, they acting classless, they acting animalistic, so to speak, it's because that's who they are. I don't expect someone to be anything other than what they are. How can you think someone should be classy when they're not classy? How do you think someone should behave maturely if they're not maturely? What you see is what you get. That's who they are. Even when there's someone trying to put on, as I was speaking of, you can tell when someone is trying to put on. Even if some are fooled, it's a young man that would say, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Some may be fooled by you, but eventually they begin to see, because what's in you gonna leak out. Even if they don't say nothing, even if they just go along. I mean, sometimes it's nothing to say. You just know. You just know the real deal. You don't have to point it out or say something or call people out. That's not necessarily necessary. And so, yeah, what's in a person is going to show itself even when they're trying to put on. And I say, when someone is playing this role and trying to act like they something they ain't, I see that there's someone who try to play a role like they're somebody that they're not. I understand that there's someone who puts on. That's who and what they are to me. That's what I see. That's what it is. In other words, they're not authentically them. And many times when people are doing that, it's because I don't want to say they can't be authentic. It's that that's who they authentically are. Someone who tries to front. Because the real them, that's not what they want to show you. Because it's ugly, it's nasty. And they're trying to gain people's interest. They're trying to get attention. So they're not going to show their ugliness, even though it still leaks out. And again, anybody with a eye can see it. Even if they don't see it at first, you eventually see it, because they can't do anything but be who they are. And who they are is going to come out. And so, They don't want to put on no new wine skins. I take that back. They actually want the new wine skins, but they want to keep the old wine. They want to stay the same, but they want a different result. Now, here it is right here. There are these people who want you to be like them. Remember, they triggered. They don't want to change, yet they're triggered by you. Their demons actually are what's triggered by you. Now, they don't want to change. They want you to be like them. Listen to this, kingdom people. And at the same time, they want to be what they see in you. Let me say that again. They don't want to change because they don't want to change, period, but you trigger the fact that they don't change. They are triggered by your growth. They don't want to change. They don't change, but they're triggered by your growth. They prefer you to be like them so they can be comfortable. Yet, they want to be what they see in you. They want that new wine, but they want to keep the old. They want the new wine skin, the outer appearance. There you go. But they want to keep that old wine. They want to stay the same, in other words. But what the scriptures say, when you put new wine in old wine skins, it'll burst. And that's what be happening to some of these people. They be trying to present an image like they the new wine skin, but really they that old wine. And what bursts is the truth. The truth burst out. They become what they call exposed. And all they do is expose themselves. Nobody have to expose you. You expose you. Because the truth of who you are going to leak. It's going to come out. You can't do nothing but be who you are. Can't do nothing but be who you are. So even if you putting on with that old wine, trying to put on like you got a new wine skin, that old wine gonna cause you some problems because it's gonna burst the new wine, which really ain't new wine. It's a front. And all along they say the old is just fine. The old is just fine, they say. The old me, I can just stay the same. And we all know that staying the same don't produce good fruit. It don't produce change. It don't produce good results. Change, transformation, and growth is all a part of life itself. Even a flower, when you put a seed, a flower seed or any kind of seed, kingdom people, in the ground, in that soil, that seed is going to flourish into whatever it is, a flower, blooms, it transforms, it changes shapes, it begins to sprout out. It becomes new. It becomes something new than the seed that it originally was. That's transformation. I'm reminded of a caterpillar that comes out of its cocoon when it's time and it turns into that beautiful butterfly. And so imagine a caterpillar trying to stay a caterpillar. Imagine that. It can't. It's going to burst out and become that butterfly. And so when these people when they stay the same, what they're doing is defying nature. They're defying the way they were created. They're defying the transformation that's supposed to be taking place. It's kind of like putting that seed in the ground and trying to put your finger on it to keep it from growing. What's the point of putting it in there and then watering it? Because see, what God will do is water you. I'm just reminded the scripture say he rains on the just as well as the unjust. So he watered everybody. He giving everybody that opportunity to grow, to sprout out, to be who he called them to be. Ain't nobody excluded, but it's up to you. Are you going to change or nah? Are you going to grow or nah? Or are you going to be the one that say, the old is just fine, they say. And it be triggered by those who are growing, who are transforming. I don't know what I was going to say. I want to say transferring. Those who are transferring something to that. You transferring. I just heard new, everything new. You transferring from that old to that new. Transform, transfer. There's a transference taking place. I'm hearing shift. And they still just fine. But they triggered by your growth. Yet they don't want to grow. Y'all know the saying, Kingdom people. They want what they see, but they don't want to do the work. They even want the change. They want the change. They just don't want to be the one changing. And they see you doing it. And again, there are those who don't even know you, and all they see is the results of all the work you put in. And as I was saying before, I don't even think I finished that. You know, they don't know what you went through. They don't care. And it don't matter. It don't matter. It is what it is. And here's the thing. If these people knew what you walked through, knew what you went through, knew the work you put in, they'll really be triggered. They'll be bothered because they'll think you went through all that and got to this. You overcame all that. They'll really be triggered because some of these people don't want to have to go through all that. And then they've been through maybe something or similar things. And it took them out. It caused them to be the one that the old is just fine. And people become stuck and stagnant for many different reasons. Sometimes they talk themselves out of moving forward. Sometimes they let other people do it. Sometimes it's a fear of what people gonna think and all kind of stuff. The point is they chose to say the same. They chose that. Because they say the old is just fine. But then they're triggered by all that you overcome. If you was to share that with them. As I said, if they was to know what you went through, what you gone through, and how you overcame this, and how you had to put it, they would be pissed off. They would really be pissed off because to know you did all that to get this, that'll really trigger them because that will upset them even more. To know that you went through all that just to get this transformation. If they knew where you came from, I remember how they say they be looking for dirt to dig up on you. Because some people do. They be trying to find something else. First of all, everybody came from somewhere. Who you was and where you was, and even what you working through. So, and what? I mean, it ain't no secret yet. You not walking around saying, oh, yeah, not to them. Anyway, if you're going to share it with somebody, you want to be to somebody that's trying to find something to conjure up something to be triggered, well, actually to use against you. But all they would do is be triggered. Because if they dig up some old stuff and they see you where you are, they'll be triggered. Because obviously you had to do some things to get here. You see what I'm saying, Kingdom people? And here they are sitting around talking about the old is just fine. Just fine, just the way I am. I'm going to just stay just like this. I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to, improve. I'm here and seek God. Because a lot of them don't want to do that. And they see what they see in you. And you are the result of you seeking. What they see in you is the result of you seeking God. A big part of it is a result of you seeking ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all this has been added unto you. And they're triggered. But they don't want to see God. They don't want to change. They don't want to do nothing. They don't want to lift a finger. They don't want to change their mindset. They don't want to. The old is just fine, they say. Kingdom people, they refuse to change, yet they are triggered by your growth. And that is all I have to say about that. So if you like this video and or if it resonates with you, please just go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Then click on that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. Thank you. Make sure you go ahead and ring my bell. Ring my bell so that you can receive a notification every time I upload a new video. If there's any information you need to know about me, you can find all that right down below in the description box, along with other helpful resources. Kingdom people, thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you for all your likes, subscribes, shares, for all your comments and feedback, for all your financial contributions to my channel, and for all the seeds you sow into me in my ministry. And a special thank you to those of you who do sow into me in my ministry. I pray that your seed returns to you a millionfold. Thank you all, Kingdom people. Thank you. Now, Kingdom people, I love you all so very much. I really don't want to leave you, but I do have to go right now. Yet, I will be back to hold my Kingdom people down. Now, Kingdom people, above all else, let the Holy Spirit lead you in all things at all times. Kingdom people, we are untouchable, we are unmovable, we are unstoppable, and we are unbreakable. Kingdom people, keep growing, keep going, and go and be great. Now, Kingdom people, stay in your kingdom bag, doing kingdom things, making kingdom moves, because we are kingdom, period. Now, Kingdom people, that is our time. This Jesus girl is out. Shalom and peace.